Hello, my friends. I'm so happy to be with you today. My name is Katie Taylor, and I am a certified child life specialist. Today, I'm talking with Jeff Loving, and I have to tell you, this conversation absolutely wrecked me in the most beautiful, brutal way. Jeff is a dad, a writer, and honestly, one of the most thoughtful advocates I've had the privilege of speaking with. He and his wife, Cassie, lost their two sons, Davian and Jadon, both around 19 weeks into their pregnancies. And here's something we don't talk about a lot. Not every parent who walks into the hospital gets to walk out with their baby. Some are leaving their little ones in the NICU, heading home to siblings and returning the next day, and some are saying goodbye far too soon. And if you're thinking, I don't know if I can handle this story today, that is okay too, and I get it. But stay with me just for a moment, because Jeff's story isn't just about loss. It's about what happens when care teams show up with real compassion, when fathers find their voice in grief, and how love doesn't end just because a baby's time earthside does. Jeff talks about the nurses who became family, the doctors who missed the mark, and why he wrote a book specifically for dads experiencing loss because he couldn't find one when he desperately needed it. And wait until you hear about Jucletus the bear and the moment of laughter in the middle of heartbreak. This conversation matters, so let's jump in.
My name is Jeff Loving. I and my wife, we live out here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We have a dog. Her name is Sage. She's going to be 5 in February. And we have a little girl. Her name is Isla Grace. She was just born this May. She's a NICU baby. And I work from home full time. My wife is a full-time nanny. We've been married for 5 years as of August 7th. So we just celebrated our 5 year anniversary. And
Anniversary.
thank you so much. And in those 5 years, we actually have had three pregnancies. And our first two pregnancies, unfortunately, ended in two losses at 19 and a half and 20 weeks. And then we were blessed with our baby girl this past May. We're currently in the newborn trenches and we are loving every minute of it, but she is such a joy and honestly we're so happy that we get to be her side parent.
Oh, my goodness. And we pronounce it Isla, is that right?
Yep, yep, yep.
Okay. Well, Jeff, you wrote to me in your questionnaire that you filled out a little bit about Davian and Jadon. And I would love for you, if you're okay with it, to kind of just take us back to the beginning moments of figuring out that something was going on with Cassie's pregnancy with Davian. And I know it was a whirlwind for you and it's probably hard to piece together, but just kind of walk us through what she was experiencing and what it was like for you as kind of the dad and the partner and the guy who's supposed to be holding everything together.
Yeah, absolutely. It would have been October of 2021. I guess we got pregnant August of 2021. We didn't know we were pregnant. And we went out to Arizona for my cousin's wedding. And we went on a hike and she was kind of like, oh man, I'm feeling kind of wheezy. And we was like, it's just the heat exhaustion. We're in the middle of the desert. Like, you're fine. And we came back and then she was like, hey, I'm pregnant. And we were like this is what we wanted. Like we're very unexpected. And she's like, yeah, it's kind of, I just went and took a test and I'm pregnant now. And I honestly like was so excited. We both were. And like we had told each other at the beginning of our relationship that we both desired to be parents. And so the fact that we were pregnant without any complications, without any medicine to help us get pregnant, like it was a dream come true. And I remember those first 14 weeks was like, I was so giddy and I was so anxious to just share the news with everybody because we had agreed that we were going to wait till at least the second trimester to share our news. And I remember it was October when we shared, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm elated. I love this. Like, I love the fact that we get to be new parents. And I remember November rolls around and we went and bought a new car. We got an SUV so we could have like everything that we needed for our baby coming in. We figured out his name and like we were just like, oh my gosh, everything's falling into place. And we entered into week 19 and this is right before Thanksgiving. And it was gonna be just a routine checkup that coming week. And she woke up one morning and she was just like, hey, I have some light spotting. And I was like, okay, well, let's get into the the doctor as soon as possible. So we went to her doctor, and we didn't get in until like 4 in the afternoon. We were like the last people to get in that day. Even though it was like we called them in the morning and they're like, "Oh, it's probably nothing. Like, just we'll just wait. The earliest they can get in is this afternoon." So we're like, "Okay, fine, whatever." Luckily, I work from home, so I was able to like just drive her over there. And I just remember sitting in that waiting room, and we are just like, "It's gonna be fine. Like, everything's good. You're not like having cramping or anything. It's just light bleeding." And we get into that room, we do the ultrasound, and the tech is looking at it, and she's like, "Everything looks okay." And then it was like a 15-minute ultrasound, and she was like, "Everything looks okay, everything looks okay." And then we got to the end of the ultrasound, and I saw I saw her face. Cassie did not see her face. Her face went white as a sheet. And she's like, "I gotta go grab the other doctor." And I, in that moment, knew something was wrong. And so she leaves the room, she goes and grabs the doctor, and the doctor comes in, they're talking, they're whispering. And it turned out that her cervix was already dilating. And hearing that in that moment, I was like, I don't know what that means. Like, I knew what it meant, but I was like, what are our chances? And she said, "You need to go to the emergency room now." And so we rushed over to the hospital. I was hysterical. Cassie was obviously like bawling her eyes out as well in the back seat. And we just a whirlwind of emotions were coming through. I had never really known anybody that had experienced a miscarriage or loss or anything like that, or stillbirth or anything up to that point. I mean, I knew people that have probably gone through it, but I never knew like the gravity of it. And I didn't know what to
Yeah.
do in that situation. And nobody prepared me for that. And so we were in the hospital, and she delivered a day later. So basically, they were trying to keep him in as long as possible. They did an amniocentesis, which is basically a very long needle that went into her amniotic sac to see if she had an infection. And it turned out she did. And they were really, really worried that he was going to get an infection. And they gave us basically two options. Number one, she could stay and try and keep him in as long as possible and run the risk of them both basically not making it, or delivering him and knowing that he wasn't going to make it. And when the doctor said that, I think it was like which option do you want? They're both terrible options, but which one is going to be less of an issue for you? And having to have that decision as a married couple in their first, just celebrated their first year of marriage. And we were like, what do we do in this situation? Like, how can you present that to us? We're expecting to have a baby, and you're telling us you're going to either lose your baby or you're going to lose your baby and your wife. Like, which one do you want? And as a husband, as like to be father, like that was soul crushing to me. And obviously, I was like, we have to keep Cassie alive. I don't want to lose her too, because I would be a shell of a person. I don't even know if I'd be able to continue living if I lost both of them. And so we ended up delivering him, and he survived for like 43 minutes, and he was just a tiny little babe. He was about 8 ounces, I believe he was, or something like that. And I just remember he was moving and like as much as he could, and you could see his little heartbeat through his like translucent skin. I just remember holding him and feeling his heartbeat on my palm, and then it just stopped. And I still think about that a lot, and how
Yeah.
much I miss him and how much I wish he was here. And then after that, just how the world just kept going, and we were sitting here with the fact that we had just lost our son. And then the next day we get discharged, and it happens to be Thanksgiving, and we had to go. And luckily, like my parents, they lived about 3 hours away at that point. We were living in Nebraska at the time, and my parents lived about three hours away. And my whole family came down. They prepared Thanksgiving for us at our apartment. They didn't. They said, if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about it. We just want to be here for you, and that was enough. But the fact that it's like we just had our son, and now we have to go celebrate Thanksgiving, that is so cruel.
Yeah. It's impossible.
So Thanksgiving's hard,
Yeah.
as you can imagine. And then add insult to injury. My birthday is on December 3rd, which is literally a week after.
Yeah.
And it was going to be my 30th birthday that year. And we were going to have, I didn't know this, my wife was going to put together a surprise birthday party because we were going to share our gender reveal for him on my birthday. And so she told me, she's like, "Hey, we're having a party." I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "Do you want to have the party or not?" And I was like, "I think it would be really nice to have people that we know and love there to celebrate not only me, but also him.
Yeah.
And that was honestly the sweetest party ever. It was just, we just felt so loved in that moment. We had his service the day before my birthday, and that was a beautiful service. It was amazing to see how many people just came out and supported us. But yeah, it was really, really hard to navigate that as a young couple that had just gotten married and trying to figure it out. And like I said, we claim to be devout Christians. She used to work at a church, even like if we were involved in our church or in a Bible study, I was on a worship team. And to have that happen without any explanation, and then to go back and say, like, everything's going to be fine. It's getting people telling you it's in God's timing, it's in God's plan. Like, this is all by design. It's like, that's not helpful. And that is not remotely what I want to hear right now. I just want my son. I just want to be a dad first. And having to navigate that was really, really hard those first few months. Even that's, I guess it took us about 2 years to really come out of that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was just, it was a really hard time in our marriage. So,
Jeff, I'm just like, I know Davian is so proud of you for so many reasons. Number one, the emotion and the love that just pours out of you, how much you love him. Like, I can feel it through the screen. Oh my gosh, I know he can feel it. I know that's not helpful. One of the things you said to me in the notes earlier and that you mentioned again was that the families and the people that were there for you, it's not about the words. It was just about the presence. And I kind of love what your parents did. Like, we don't have to talk about it. We can if you want. We just want to be there. Them seeing you in pain, them being in pain too. Sometimes it's not that the pain is lessened, but when it's shared, it feels a little bit more manageable to carry.
yeah.
Because you have somebody else next to you. And I know I don't know Cassie, but I can imagine she feels incredibly lucky to have you as a partner.
I feel blessed to have her as a partner. Honestly, she exudes love, and just her presence. When you're in her presence, she is all focused on whoever she's with,
Yeah.
and that is who she's focused on.
Wow.
So often she pours out to serve
Yeah.
so many other people that she doesn't get poured into. And so that's what I love, to be able to be in her presence, to pour into her, to remind
Wow.
her how much she is valued, how much she is loved, how amazing of a mom she is. Even before we had Isla, it's like she loves her boys so fiercely.
Oh, yeah. If it's okay, I would love to, and it's okay if you don't remember or don't want to talk about it, but just being a little curious about your experience in the hospital during those minutes when Davian was born and you were holding him and loving him, and even the before and after. Were there any things that the care team did really well in that first situation, not the second
Yeah,
one? I know we'll get to that.
was that was a whirlwind. Honestly, our nurses that were there when I don't remember when we checked in. It's a blur. I remember pulling up. Our friend Connor actually came and got our car and parked it for us, and then went and let Sage out, our dog. And I was like, "Go, just go take care of her, take care of her car." I don't know. I don't remember checking in. I don't remember talking to anybody. I just remember being in the room, and our care team that was there when we delivered him. I specifically remember those nurses, and they were honestly such a calming presence in the chaos. So much so that we actually I added them on Facebook afterwards because I was like, I want to keep in touch with you. And every time that we have a chance to like update them on our life, or if we're ever back in the area, like we're like, hey, can we get together with you guys because you guys meant so much to us? And that was 4 years ago. We um when we got I know we'll get to it, but when we got pregnant with our second son, they were some of the first people that we let know. And then when
Yeah.
we got pregnant and we delivered Isla, they were two of the first people that we told, because they showed up to Davian's service as well. I guess I was like, oh my gosh, when I saw them walk through, I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are amazing nurses. As for like the rest of the care team, and I don't want to paint anybody in a bad light or anything like
Oh,
that,
no,
but
I see this fully as an opportunity for us to learn and do better.
yeah,
And just pointing out what you said about the nurses is you didn't say, oh, they helped us feel so much better. You said they were a calming presence. And they're also the people in the world who know Davian.
yeah,
And so, like, that connection is so important. And I could go back and forth on boundaries in the hospital, but there are these families that you meet, and I know the Lovings are one of them, that to be able to share in your joy now is what's going to keep them being nurses.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I could talk about with all three of our children, I could talk about the nurses all day,
Mm.
literally all day long. We had amazing nurses for each of our experiences. Even with the NICU, like, oh my gosh, amazing nurses. But I was going to say was the rest of our care team, especially with Davian. And again, I don't want to paint anybody in a bad light. But it's something about like our nurses with Davian were both female. The doctors were all male, and there was something there that would just it just felt like there wasn't empathy in the room when the doctors would walk in. They walked in, and there was one doctor that did his best. Like he was just being honest. He's like, "This is where you're at. This is where the future's leading." And he was the doctor that actually told us, like, "Hey, if you guys do get pregnant again, I would recommend a Cerclage."
Yeah.
And he was very realistic, but he tried his best to be empathetic. But he's just like, it's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
The other doctor that actually delivered him was just so out of it felt like he was so out of touch. And I don't know if you've read my book yet, but the very first chapter is basically the dad in the hospital interacting with the doctor. And there's a part where he says to the doctor says to the dad, like, do you want to cut the cord? With like a jovial smile. I didn't make that up. That was literally what I experienced as a dad from that doctor. And I was like, I don't know what you're asking me right now. And that was just the disconnect. I was just
Yeah.
like, I know you just delivered our son, but I am not happy about it. I'm not my own. And you're
Yeah.
coming to me asking if I want to cut my son's cord. Like, no, I don't.
There's a
And so,
disconnect.
yeah, absolutely. And that was, again, that's where it was at, where it was like, I wish you had had more spatial awareness. So the cliche, read the room, you know?
What do you wish she would have said?
I think I would have just wanted him to just, like I said before, just be there with us and just say, I know this is very hard. And if you would like me to stay, I will. But if you would like me to go, I'm more than willing to go. But just know that my heart is heavy for you, or like my heart breaks for you. And I'm so sorry that you guys are going through this. Know
Yeah.
that our care team's going to take care of you for as much as you need. That would have been beyond. And then he could have just left the room. And I could never see him again. I would have been like, man, that doctor, he nailed it. That's exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. That our care team is going to care for you until you're ready to go home. Because that was our experience when we were down here in North Carolina with our second pregnancy.
Yeah.
That's what the doctor did.
Yeah.
So,
It's the compassion check that for me has to be a non-negotiable with families, to every single family when you show up. And I'm sorry that you didn't get that. One of the things I know from your story is that you became a hell of a fierce advocate after Davian was born.
a little bit.
Not not just for you and for Cassie, but for whatever your future looked like. And you mentioned it had been a couple years coming out of the intense grief and fog. What are the next part of your journey like?
Yeah. So we actually came to North Carolina on our honeymoon before dating, obviously. And in the back of our mind, we were like, what if we one day moved to North Carolina? So that's kind of like the setup. And after Davian, we got more serious about wanting to move, buy a house. And we jokingly one day were like, what about North Carolina? Like in the midst of our grief, we were just like, why not North Carolina?
Had you ever been there before?
Aside from our honeymoon, I had never been. So
Yeah.
literally our knowledge of North Carolina was Asheville and the
Yeah.
Blue Ridge Parkway around Asheville. Otherwise, never been to North Carolina. And we were like, why not North Carolina? Maybe Asheville, maybe, I don't know. And so we came out here on an exploratory trip with some friends. And so we went to Charlotte, we went to Raleigh, and then we came to Winston-Salem. And after visiting all three, Winston-Salem was like a no-brainer. It reminded us so much of Lincoln. It was like a college town, but it wasn't like explosive, like college game day. Like, oh my gosh, I'm downtown Lincoln on a game day and I can't park anywhere and I can't walk anywhere. And it just felt like a fresh start in a beautiful city. They have all 4 seasons, but winters are not bad here versus the Midwest where I grew up.
Yeah.
And we actually had a friend of ours that lives in the area. She lives like 20 minutes from here. And she was like, hey, we have this amazing realtor. We're going to get you connected with her. And so we got connected with her. And long story short, she found us a house. We bought our house over FaceTime, which is totally post.
I've done that. After we did it, we go, we don't even buy jeans online.
Exactly. Yeah. Our initial plan was we're going to move in August. And then we put our offer in on the very first house that we liked. And she's like, don't expect to get it. You're probably not going to get it. And then she calls us the next day and she's like, hey, you got a house. And we're like, I guess we're moving in May. Okay. So we moved cross
Oh,
country.
that's like, I see that as like what you would call God or universal intelligence, like pushing you towards that
Exactly.
path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And so we moved here. We knew one person, or like her family. It's actually Lizzie's sister. My friend that's a special or child life specialist. It's her older sister lives here. And so we moved out here, and they were the only people that we knew. We struggled with pregnancy after that. We struggled with a lot of things after that. And we thought this new move was gonna fix everything. It's gonna get us out of the slump that we were in. And we struggled for about another year, um, just kind of going through the motions. Our marriage was on, I would honestly say it was on a razor's edge. And somebody told us before that we made the move, he told us, when you experience loss like that, your marriage is on a knife's edge. It's either going to go one or two ways. It's either going to break your relationship and you'll just go your separate ways, or it's going to make your marriage that much stronger. And it's going to bond you, and it's going to make the two of you so much stronger as a married couple. And thankfully, it was that second option for us. It took about a year for us to come out of that slump, but when we did, we were like, okay, we went through this grief. We came out stronger together, and my love for you has deepened even more. And then with our pregnancy journey, we tried to get pregnant. We were having issues after issue, and just it really entered into our infertility journey. um, so lost, and now we're dealing with infertility. And we went through our infertility journey for about a year and a half before we got pregnant again. And the only reason why I got pregnant was because she found out she had PCOS. So that was step one. And we started getting educated. She started getting very educated to the point where she's like, I would love to become a doula so that I can teach other women what my experience has been and also giving the information. We actually met with a doula who's now one of our really close friends, and she recommended that we get on letrozole. And so we ended up starting to use letrozole after letrozole. And she used it one time, and then we got pregnant. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're pregnant. Like, this is amazing. Like, it's also terrifying because we got pregnant in August again.
Oh.
And when we went in for our appointment, our very first appointment at 8 weeks, we found out that our second son's due date was exactly 7 days after Davian's.
Wow.
And so it was like, okay, so we're literally living through our trauma in real time, almost day for day again.
Yeah.
And so we went through that, and I remember it was 2023. We got through Thanksgiving, and we're like, okay, we're almost there. We're going into week 19. Week 19 rolls around. We're doing great. We had a gender reveal party going to week 20, or almost to week. We were about 19 days or 19 weeks and 3 days, I believe it was. We had a gender reveal party, and then the following Sunday was my birthday. And I was like, this is gonna be great. It's gonna be redemptive, everything. So we ended up like having a FaceTime with some really good friends of ours who called my family. And that night, we were getting ready for bed, and Cassie called me she went to the restroom, and she called me into the bathroom, and she was like, I need you to come look at this. And I rush into the bathroom, and she's like, do you see something, or is it just me? I looked, and sure enough, it was her amniotic sac starting to bulge. And so she's like, I'm gonna sit down on the bed. I'm gonna just see if it stops. And she was reading up on it. And she sat there for about an hour. And it was like midnight at this point.
Yeah.
And I was like, we need to go to the hospital. We need to. And I remember driving to the hospital that morning at 1 a.m. And we drove there. I remember screaming slamming my fist against the steering wheel, just yelling out to whoever could hear me, like, why this again? Why this exact situation again? When we get to the hospital, it was Monday morning. It was at like 1:30 in the morning. Pull into the hospital. We go up and we get into the room and everything. And basically, it was a repeat of what happened before. What I did forget to mention was prior to that, and I know I put it in the questionnaire, was that we had asked to have a cerclage done when we had our first appointment. And we asked to have a cerclage put in at week 12 to 14, somewhere in there. Which if people don't know what a cerclage is, it's literally just a stitch to sew a woman's cervix shut so that she has a chance to go further. Our specialist was not convinced that she had an incompetent cervix, which also just means that she would dilate early, that she would have an early pregnancy. And he was under the impression that with Davian, it was probably due to an infection that caused it. And he was not convinced based on her age, this only being her second pregnancy, like wasn't convinced there was incompetent cervix.
Is it a risky procedure to do a cerclage without a necessary reason to do it?
Not at all. It has a 95% success rate. And there's two different types of stitches, or there's multiple different types of stitches. The most basic one, it literally, they'll go in, they have to go in like under anesthesia. So I guess that's like the risky part of it.
Sure.
But literally, it's just a stitch. And then typically, if you're able to make it all the way, you just get it removed at like week 36.
Okay.
And there might be some
Got it.
light bleeding, but that's just because the stitch has been up there for 7 months at that point.
Yeah.
So it's just maybe light bleeding. It can potentially lead to early delivery, but at that point, you're basically full term if you're able to make it to 36 weeks. And he just was not convinced. And so we were like, okay, leading up to when her amniotic sac was starting to descend, she went from, at week 17, she went from 4 centimeters dilated to 2.9 centimeters dilated in a week. And we were like, hey, can we get that cerclage? Like, is that a thing? And he's like, well, my practice, we don't like to do it before 2.5 centimeters dilated. So she's got a little bit of time. If we need to do an emergency one, we can. And we were like, okay, sounds good. A week passes. She goes from 2.9 to 2.7. And we were like, hey, it's week 19. You know how traumatic this is for us.
Right.
We would like to have a cerclage. Just 0.2 centimeters away. Can you just do it? No, we're just going to keep an eye on it. Would you like to come back in a week or would you like to come back in 2 weeks? And at that point, when he said that, like we got to the car and we were like, did he just ask us like, which one would we prefer? Like, obviously we would like to have it done today. And he's asking, would you like to go a week or 2 weeks? And we're like, a week. And that was during the week of week 19. And then, like I said before, Sunday rolls around. Our next appointment was on Tuesday. And this is kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier with like the lack of empathy or like the care team not showing up for patients. That same doctor, when we were in the hospital room, we actually had a travel nurse. She was amazing. And she was very attentive. She was like, it's neat. And they had her, I don't know if you call it incline or decline, but basically they had like, if this is the bed, her head was down here, her legs were elevated, to try and like keep Jadon in her. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go get us food really quick because we hadn't eaten at that point. And our friend of ours was bringing us some food. And so I ran down to the lobby. In that time, from when I went to the lobby and back, which was 10 minutes, maybe, the doctor, who we had just seen a week before, who did not want to give us a cerclage, decides to enter the room while I'm not there. And Cassie said, I don't want him here. I don't want to talk to the doctor. The nurse told him that. And yet the nurse walks in and he walks in right behind her and then proceeds to tell her what is going to happen, that we're going to lose our baby, that we have to deliver because there's nothing we can do, that he was extremely sorry that he did not give us the procedure when we did. But instead, the next time that we get pregnant, instead of doing a cerclage, we're going to do an abdominal stitch, which is basically stapling or sewing, I can't remember which one it is, their cervix or their like above their cervix, like in their abdomen, so that when she does get pregnant and she's about to deliver, she would have to have a cesarean birth every single time. and then he was gone. So he like drew it on like a marker or like a whiteboard and everything, and then he left the room. And I saw him in the hallway leaving, but I didn't know he was in our room.
And he didn't say, "Hey, let me tell you what I just told your wife
Didn't
who's
tell
sitting upside down right now."
didn't tell me a thing. Just walked by. I gave him like a death glare because I was like, I don't want to see you right now because of like what happened last week. I enter the room. Cassie is literally hysterically crying. And I'm like, what just happened? It's been 10 minutes. And the nurse brings me up to speed, and I was livid. I was like, who in their right mind thought that that was a good idea? To tell my wife, who's currently trying to keep her son alive and keep her son inside of her, to have the doctor who just denied us care of like what he thought would be the right decision. And again, we've had a lot of time to process that. He did what he thought was, in his professional opinion, the best idea. Full stop.
Yeah.
In there. In that moment, though, I was like, I am so angry at this man that he
Yeah.
would have the audacity to do that to her.
Yeah.
Room. And to talk about future pregnancies while she's
I
currently
just
pregnant, like, do better. Please do better. And our nurse told us after the fact, he said to her, like, I can't believe this. I just saw them last week. And they were supposed to have an emergency cerclage if they needed it. And he was just dumbfounded that we were in the hospital in the process of delivering our baby.
Yeah.
And so after that happened, we the hospital we were at did not have like a level 4 NICU, but there was one in town at the other hospital. And our actual doctor, who Cassie had been going to prenatal appointments to, not the other guy was the specialist. She was amazing caregiver. She was there with us every step of the way through this pregnancy. She knew our story intimately. Every time we go to a prenatal appointment, she was so attentive, always on board with like whatever we wanted to do. And she was, again, an amazing caregiver. Every single person that we've ever talked to that has had her deliver for them, giving reviews. And we would say the same thing if she actually had, if we had continued going to that hospital, we would have kept her. We've been like, yeah, you and only you, please in the room when you
Right.
deliver.
Yeah.
But she said to us, she's like, the likelihood of you having to deliver is very high right now. And I'm going to be honest with you, my professional opinion, this is not the hospital that you need to be at if you're going to deliver your son. You need to be at that level 4 NICU.
Yeah.
And she said, do you want to be transferred? And without missing a beat, we both said yes.
Yeah.
And
Sign the
so,
papers.
yeah, exactly. And so she's like, all right, we're going to get this done. She got it done within 20 minutes. We were in the ambulance within 45 minutes from then. Got transferred to the other hospital. I obviously drove separate, immediately got there, and the care team there compared to the previous place, night and day difference. Aside from that one doctor that was at the previous hospital, night and day difference. As soon as we rolled into the labor and delivery unit, our nurse was so attentive. She was so like, just her presence was just so calming. Again, like the other two nurses I talked about. At the same time, you could tell she was like, her heart was breaking in real time for us. And so we spent the night there. The next morning we went down and we had her as a nurse again, luckily. And we went to get an ultrasound and just see what was happening. And the ultrasound tech left and our doctor came in and she told us the reality of the situation, that we were going to have to deliver him. And that was heartbreaking because it was exactly like what had just happened with Davian 2 years prior. And at the same time, as heartbreaking and as hard as it was and how awful it was, we had a sense of hope that we were going to make it through. And we chose to basically choose, we chose to see it as, how can this awful tragedy be something that we can hold on to as a sense of joy, that we can celebrate our son even in the midst of this, to know that even though we don't get to spend time with him on earth, that he's going to go be with his brother. And so that was our perspective. And we were just like, we longed for him so badly to be here with us, but we also know like this is just part of our story. And it's going to be a way that we're able to share with people in the future. And so long story short, we proceeded with that and we ended up delivering him. And thankfully, he was willing to wait for him. My parents drove 18 hours. My mom was at work. My dad's a farmer by trade, so he was like, whatever, I can just drop everything and drive. And they drove through the night and they were here within 18 hours.
Whoa.
Cassie's family came down, and then her best friend, she lives in Ohio now, she drove down as well. And all three groups that we wanted to be here were able to make it in time before he was born. And having those people with us in the hospital was so life giving to us. It was so important that they were here with us.
Yeah.
But in the waiting, in the meantime, our care team was truly what got us through that second pregnancy. And specifically, I wanted to highlight one of our amazing care team. Her name was, ironically enough, her name was Angel, which I was like, truly exude your name, an embodiment of her name. And her job at the hospital is the bereavement of newborns, or like newborn bereavement coordinator, bereavement coordinator. I don't remember exactly what her name or her title is, but she does her job so well, so well. She would visit us every day before he was born, every day after he was born. She made sure that every single thing, every detail was lined up exactly what we wanted. She picked out clothes for him to be put into after he was born. She did to put into the little bear that we have. She did pictures. She coordinated pictures to be taken. She did footprints, handprints, every single thing you can think of. She did it. One of my favorite stories about Angel, actually. I don't know if I answered this in the questionnaire, but my family was in the room. We had not told anybody his name at that point, except for Laura, our really good friend that came down. My parents did not know his name. We had told Angel his name though, and she was talking about like the heartbeat and like little thing that she was gonna put into the bear, and the clothes that we were gonna put him in. And she was like, Jadon's gonna look amazing in these little clothes. And my mom, she was like, were we supposed to know his name? Angel, without missing a beat. I don't know why she said this. She's like, I meant Jucletus. He's and we just the somber moment of us picking out these clothes, and she threw out the name Jucletus, and we all just burst out laughing. And Cassie's like still obviously pregnant with him, and just like the tears are rolling, but in a different way. And it was hilarious. And we still talk about that, and still talk about her presence in that room and just the light that she brought to that situation.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
So much so that we nicknamed the bear that she gave us Jucletus. So his name is Jucletus. And so whenever people say like, oh, who's the bear? And we're like, oh, this is Jucletus. And we're so excited to tell them. And that just gives us a doorway to talk about our son. And the other team back in Nebraska also gave us a weighted dinosaur, and that's Dino Dave. And so we have these two stuffed animal remembrance toys for our boys. And Dino Dave is the same weight as Davian was, and Jucletus has his heartbeat in him. And it's just like that was something else that was like very, very important to remember.
I can imagine that Isla is going to love and cherish those two stuffed animals, probably more than anybody ever could.
Absolutely.
And a very good friend of mine who is a child life specialist and specializes in grief and loss, and herself has had loss, talks a lot about how her daughter, who was born after Maggie died, misses Maggie, even though she never met her. And going to those items helps her daughter find peace.
So I talk a lot about our community. I share about our community all the time. I think it was last Christmas. Or maybe it was 2023. I can't remember. I think it was 2023, actually, now that I think about it. One of the most meaningful gifts we have ever received for our boy. I cry every single time. One of our friends made this ornament, and it's both of their footprints, but they're two different ornaments, one for Davian, one for Jadon, and it's their footprints. And then they have one with both sets of footprints on them, and it just says remembering our boys. And every single year during Christmas, we get to hang those up.
Yeah.
And when we had Isla, I was like, she's gonna get to see those ornaments. She's gonna get asked about them.
Yeah. Big brothers.
Oh, for big brothers. So in front of our house, we planted 2 bushes out there recently, and they're wegelas. I don't know if you've ever seen a wegel bush. We were like, oh, they're beautiful. Like we just thought they looked pretty.
Yeah.
And as I was planting them, Cassie was looking up online like, what is the symbolism of these bushes? And apparently they in some cultures are a symbolism of loss of somebody.
Cute.
Not intentional at all. Like we bought them and then we found that out and they're right outside the nursery. And I was just like, oh my God. So
That
many signs
so many.
of their presence is still very much in our story. And we talk about them constantly. Whenever somebody asks about like, is this your first child when we have Isla? And we're like, before we had Isla, that question is so difficult to answer
Yeah.
if you are parents of loss but don't have any airside children. It's honestly the most gut wrenching thing to answer. There's no right answer. But now that we have Isla with us and people ask, like, is this your first child? I say confidently, no, this is our double rainbow child. Because we had our two boys before. And people approach that differently. And some people are like, I don't know how to react to that.
Yeah.
Like, that's so beautiful that you get to say that. And I'm like, absolutely. But even before we had Isla, I always said, like, we're still parents. We still celebrate Mother's Day and Father's Day.
And it's not about their comfort. Or, it's not your job to comfort somebody who asks that question, as well meaning as it can be. One of the things you've done is write your story and use words to pen on paper. Have you always been a journaler or a writer? Do you do this for work? Or what compelled you to start doing that and write your book?
Absolutely. I've always been a writer. Even when I was a kid, I would draw like terrible drawings, but like I would draw with like crayon and like write out random stories. So I've always been interested in writing. So much so that I have my degree is actually a secondary English education. I used to be an English teacher and
Okay.
then I moved away from that. But while I was a teacher, I actually did publish a previous book, historical fiction. I'm not going to get into it on this, but like I had published before.
Wow.
So that was like my first intro into the world of like creative writing and everything. I wrote a book and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And I was like, I would love to be a full-time author one day. Like that's like my dream job is to be a
Yeah.
full-time author. And after Davian, I didn't know how to process my grief. And I remember the morning before we had a service, I woke up at like 4 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. I was just like, my mind was racing. I didn't know what to do. And so I just started writing. And so I wrote a poem for him called Dino Dave. And it was about this little dinosaur that was like basically living life with us and just all the things that I dreamed that he could do with it. And I wrote it in like 45 minutes and I was just like, I don't know, it's probably not that good. Then Cassie read it. She just broke down. She's just like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So much so that we ended up having one of our really good friends read it during his service. Like there was not a dry eye, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, look at me. Like there was not a dry eye in that entire chapel. I still hold it dear to me. So after we lost Jadon, I remember telling Cassie, I was like, I want to write something, but I don't know what. I don't know what to write yet. And it took me about 2 months to really finalize like what I wanted to write about.
Yeah.
And I told her, I was like, as much as I want to just share our story, I don't want it to just be us. I want it to be other people's stories. So my idea was, how can I encapsulate our stories of loss and bring it to be a beacon of hope for other fathers of loss, specifically fathers of loss, because that's what I experienced.
Yeah.
I have nothing against, like, there's so many resources for mothers of loss, but there are very few resources for fathers of loss. And that's something I learned in our journey. And I was like,
You looked for it.
I did. I looked for everything. I found like a few books, but again, they were just like, it's helpful, but it's not really what I was seeking. And so I was like, how can I bring those two ideas together? And so that's what I did. I was like, I know people in our immediate circle that have experienced loss, but not just like what we went through. And so I reached out to a few guys and I was like, hey, would you be willing to share your story with me? And I want to put your story into a book, and I can redact your name, I can change your name, whatever you want.
Yeah.
But your story is going to be your story, and I'm going to tell it and I'm going to make sure that it's okay before I publish this. And so I did that, and it took me about a year to file everything. And I put it into a fictional format. And whenever I told people before they read the book, they were like, how the heck are you going to take real stories and make it into a fictional story? I was like, that's the beauty of writing, and you just have to read the book. But basically, the main character is my grief when we walk through Davian and his loss. And the people that he meets in the story, every single person that he meets is a real person that we actually know. And he basically meets with three fathers, and all three fathers are people that we have in our life, and it's their stories.
I'm
Some of the
sure
names,
that is so precious to them.
absolutely, absolutely. And they were just like, I feel heard. I feel seen for the first time. Because a lot of people think when they hear loss, they're like, oh, it's just like you had a miscarriage. And it's like, it goes beyond that. The very
Yeah.
first story that I talk about is the loss of never having a biological child and going the adoption route and how hard that was for that couple. And then the second one was going through the IVF process and the loss of like again having to have this balance between is this scientifically okay with my religion? The two clash. Is am I morally compromised for wanting to have a child this way? And the complexities of IVF. And then the last one is the complexities of not only having a child already and navigating loss, but having a child and learning that your child has trisomy 18. And it's a matter of when you're going to lose your child versus if, and the complexities of that, and just having to know that your son is not going to make it. And that was all three of those stories were so hard to like sit with. And but I'm so thankful that I was able to.
Wow.
And honestly, the feedback that I've gotten, and I published it with the intent of like, I don't care how many copies I sell. I don't care how much income I get from this. Like that is not the point at all. I wanted to put this book out there for people to use as a resource because I didn't have this resource when I was going through it. Now I want people to have this. And already so many people have reached out and been like, this has been so helpful for so many other resources that have fallen short. And the last thing I'm going to say is like, because this one hit me really, really hard. So our really good friend Laura, um, she has a pretty big following on Instagram. I do not. So she promoted our book, and she in her videos said, if you know somebody that you think would benefit from this book, you can send it to them. But if you don't want to say like who it's from, send it anonymously.
Yeah.
So this couple, I've never met them in my life. They received my book. They live in Michigan. I've never met this couple. She messaged me on Instagram and I was like, I don't know who this is. Like, I guess I'll read it. And I read her message and she said, your book was so helpful for our family. We just lost our son in December. And she said, my husband has been struggling so much. And this is the first book that he's read in over a decade. Thank you so much for writing this. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is why I wrote that book. This is why I wrote it. Because it's men like that that need a resource and that need a voice that understand what it's like to be a man walking through loss and to be okay with sharing their emotions with their partner, sharing their grief with their partner, being real and raw, and being like, this sucks.
And it hurts.
So much pain right now. And I just want an answer, but I can't get it. Even if you're a Christian, I'm a Christian. I struggled so much with my walk with God. I even write about it in the book. I was like, I'm done with this. I cannot say I love a God that would allow something like this to happen.
Yeah.
My journey, my faith journey has been healing. But it's been very, very difficult these last 4 years. I'm thankful to say like I am on the other side of that. I'm healing from that, but I'm very raw in the book.
Yeah.
And like when there's a whole chapter about his conversation with God, and they're just two guys out in the woods, and I'm like laying it on, and that is
I bet that felt.
it's just what I felt, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to yell at somebody. I just wanted to punch a wall,
Yeah.
and to hear that from another man saying thank you is everything to me.
It's such a testament to what Davian and Jadon, the impact that they'll have through your words that they would have never, could have never dreamt of, that they are able to heal. You are a beautiful soul inside and out and so talented. I know you're going to be a world renowned author and that all of your dreams will come true, but I'm sure that it feels like all your dreams have come true when you see Isla, and that is also met with a ton of sadness and really confusing. And we could probably talk for another hour about all of that too.
Yep. absolutely. There's a lot of emotions that come with being a NICU dad and being a lost parent and having a child on her side. But she is beautiful, and we are so thankful for her. And I'm so thankful for our boys. As
Thankful.
maddening as it is that we lost them, I'm so thankful for their life being part of our story.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to.
Where can we buy your book
Yeah.
and
So
follow you?
so my book, it might come up on here backwards, but it's Holding On to the Light, a father's journey through loss and healing. My author name is J.S. Loving. So if you try and type in my name, you might not find it, but it is available on Amazon. It's print copies and then Kindle. If you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. You can just download it right onto your Kindle. And then if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's LOVIJEF. I'm not like a huge influencer or anything. Like I sometimes promote my book on there, obviously, but I try and be as present as I can. And ultimately my goal is to just connect with other fathers of loss to talk about their stories and share their stories. And the last thing I'm going to promote is at the end of the book, if I can find it here, there is an email address on the very last page. There's contact information on there. And this is an email address that I put in. It's called holding on to the light book at gmail.com. Is only I have eyes of it, but it's an email that I specifically made with the intention in mind of fathers being able to email me their stories and just have a discussion if they want. They can reach out to me, ask me for resources. I want that to be like the springboard into furthering conversations, because eventually my next project that I would love to do is collecting those stories and making like a collection of father stories to bring even more attention to this and the men's mental health and around loss, and like saying it's okay
Yeah.
to grieve.
That's so beautiful. And thank you for doing that out of like the generosity of your spirit and your time. So thank you. As a parent, you want to be there for your child, especially when it comes to their health. But healthcare can be overwhelming and confusing. The good news is child life specialists are experts who help families navigate these challenges. But often our support is only in hospitals. So imagine if you had access to these valuable tools and resources all the time. You would be able to understand medical procedures, explain them to your child, and help them feel less anxious, which also makes you probably feel less anxious. So when your child visits the doctor, has surgery, or has a medical procedure, having the right information and support can make all the difference. You, the parent, can be prepared to answer their questions, calm their fears, and advocate for their needs. Child Life Specialist tools are ready to be in your hands right now through our app Support Spot. All you have to do is go to the iOS or Android store, type in Support Spot. We are giving all of our listeners on this podcast access to the app for just $19.99 for an entire year. You are going to have, I'm not kidding, 7 years worth of resources and support and information that we have been building at Child Life on Call at your fingertips. With these tools in your pocket, you can transform the way your family experiences medical care. Parents, you deserve to be informed and feel confident in your child's healthcare journey. And by having access to Support Spot, you can ensure that your child feels supported and understood no matter what medical challenges come your way. Head to the link in the show notes or go to your app store, type in Support Spot to download it today. For those of you who are joining us today, I am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I am a child life specialist. And the suggestions and tips and resources that I talk about with parents on this podcast may be great for you and they may not be right for you. So the most important person you can talk to about getting support is your care team, your doctor who knows your story and your child's story. So regardless of maybe what I mention or what other families mention here, we're not licensed therapists, we're not doctors. We're having a conversation about what the parenting journey has been like. So please keep that in mind as you listen today.